Kansas and Nebraska are two states located in the core of America's Midwestern region. While each state has a lot in common physically, both are quite different socially. Let's compare both states in the latest State Comparison Series episode. The states of Kansas and Nebraska have unique histories and geographies. Kansas, located in the heart of the United States, has a rich and complex history shaped by its role in westward expansion, agriculture, and conflicts over slavery. Originally inhabited by Native American tribes such as the Kansas and Pawnee, the region became part of the U.S. through the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. Kansas gained national attention in the 1850s due to the violent conflict known as Bleeding Kansas, as pro-slavery and anti-slavery settlers clashed over the state's future status, influencing the lead-up to the Civil War. In 1861, Kansas entered the Union as a free state. Over time, it became a significant agricultural hub, especially known for wheat production, while its flat plains and prairies have become symbolic of the American Midwest. Nebraska, like Kansas, has a history deeply tied to western expansion and agriculture. Originally inhabited by Native American tribes such as the Omaha, Ponca, and Pawnee, the region was explored by European settlers after the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. Nebraska became a critical stop on trails like the Oregon, California, and Mormon trails during the 19th century. Established as a U.S. territory in 1854 under the Kansas-Nebraska Act, it was a focal point in the national debate over slavery, allowing settlers to decide the issue by popular sovereignty. Known for its vast prairies, Nebraska became a major agricultural center, particularly in cattle ranching and corn production, earning the nickname the Cornhusker State. In today's State Comparison Series episode, we are going to compare Kansas and Nebraska. The video will focus on both physical and human geography. In terms of physical geography, we will review three main factors: the geomorphology, meteorology, and ecology, while with human geography, we will review four main factors: the demography, urbanization, economy, and geopolitics. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to my channel, Our World, Our Planet, Our Home, if you enjoy learning about geography, both physical geography and human geography. Let's get started. Geomorphologically, both Kansas and Nebraska are influenced by their location in the Midwest. Kansas's geomorphology is primarily defined by its vast plains and subtle topographical features. The state lies within the central lowlands and Great Plains region of North America, with its landscape gradually rising from east to west. In the eastern part of the state, Kansas is relatively low-lying, but not as low as coastal states as it's landlocked, with the Verdigris River at the Oklahoma border being the lowest at 678 feet. At the far western part of Kansas, and a half-mile away from the Colorado border, is the highest elevation, Mount Sunflower, at an elevation of 4,039 feet. While this is the state's highest peak, it's not a true mountain and is virtually indistinguishable from the surrounding terrain. Like Kansas, Nebraska's elevation gradually increases from east to west. Nebraska's geomorphology is largely shaped by its position within the Great Plains and the central lowlands, resulting in a landscape dominated by plains, rolling hills, and river valleys. Nebraska's lowest point is the Missouri River at the Kansas border at an elevation of 840 feet, higher than Rhode Island's, Mississippi's, Louisiana's, Delaware's, and Florida's highest elevations. In the far southwestern part of Nebraska lies the state's highest peak, Panorama Point, at an elevation of 5,429 feet. Also, like Kansas, it isn't a true mountain and is around a half-mile away from the Colorado border and a mile away from the Wyoming border. Meteorologically, Kansas and Nebraska are in a continental interior, but there are some differences. Kansas is further south and does experience somewhat milder conditions than Nebraska, particularly in the southern part of the state. Because of the changeable geomorphology, Kansas has three distinct climatic zones: humid subtropical in the eastern half of the state, humid continental in the northern part of the state near Nebraska, and semi-arid in the far western part of the state. The eastern half of Kansas experiences all four seasons, and during the spring and autumn, temperatures can rapidly increase or decrease with warmer cold fronts moving through. Also, the dueling air masses may produce severe weather, which can result in supercell thunderstorms and tornado outbreaks. Summertime temperatures statewide are quite warm, with more humidity in the eastern part of the state. In the winter, Kansas does experience cold Arctic outbreaks from time to time, and this can lead to snowstorms, blizzards, and ice storms, although communities further south see less of this. Similarly, Nebraska is also split into the same three climatic zones: humid subtropical in the southwestern area, humid continental in the eastern half, and semi-arid in the far western area. Being further north, Nebraska does experience colder winter temperatures than Kansas, leading to snowier conditions. Summers are often warm to hot, with humidity levels higher in the eastern half of the state. Since warm and cold air masses converge over the state, most of Nebraska is located in Tornado Alley, and the state can see severe weather outbreaks that produce tornadoes, especially during the transitional spring and autumn months. In terms of ecology, Kansas and Nebraska are so much alike that they can be discussed together. Kansas and Nebraska share similar ecological landscapes characterized by vast prairies, river valleys, and a range of grasslands. In Kansas, the eastern part is covered in tall grass prairies, while the western part shifts to shortgrass plains, reflecting the state's gradient from wetter to drier climates. Nebraska follows a similar pattern, with its eastern region dominated by tall grass prairies and its central and western areas transitioning to mixed and shortgrass prairies. Both states are home to diverse wildlife, including bison, prairie dogs, and numerous bird species. Their river systems, including the Kansas and Platte rivers, serve as critical migratory paths for birds and vital water sources for surrounding ecosystems. This mix of prairie ecosystems and waterways makes both states ecologically rich, despite their predominantly agricultural landscapes. On to human geography, let's start with demography. Kansas and Nebraska are large physically, but in terms of population, both are smaller than many Midwestern, Eastern, Southern, and Western states. Kansas has a current population of 2,940,546 people, ranked 36th. The state has grown considerably in the last few decades, but the growth has slowed down a bit in recent years. Racially, Kansas is a majority white state with 74.7%, and the largest minority group are Hispanics at 12.7%, followed by blacks at 6.2% and Asians at 2.9%. Ethnically, the three largest ancestral groups are German, Irish, and English. Nebraska is smaller than Kansas, with a total population of 1,978,379, ranked 38th nationwide. Overall, the state has seen similar growth patterns to Kansas. Racially, Nebraska is also a majority white state with 78.6%, and Hispanics make up the largest minority group at 10.2%, followed by blacks at 4.9% and Asians at 2.7%. Notable ethnic groups within the state are Germans, Irish, and English. Also, Czechs make up 4.7% of the population, the largest of any U.S. state. Urbanization patterns in Kansas and Nebraska have some notable differences. Kansas's largest city is Wichita, with a population of just over 397,000 residents. But its second and third largest cities, Overland Park and Kansas City, are within the Kansas City, Missouri metropolitan area, which is the largest metropolitan area within Kansas. Rounding out the top 5 cities are Olathe, another suburb of Kansas City, and Topeka, the state capital. Being a mostly suburban and rural state, Kansas is orientated around the automobile, and the state is traversed by several major interstates, including I-70, an east-west cross-country highway going from Baltimore, Maryland to Cove Fort, Utah, I-35, a north-south interstate going from Duluth, Minnesota to Laredo, Texas, I-135, I-335, and I-29, along with many U.S., state, and county roads. Most of Nebraska's population lives in the eastern part of the state, and Omaha is the largest city in the state with around 467,000 residents, and a metropolitan area population of 967,000. Lincoln, the state capital, is around 50 miles southwest of Omaha and has a population close to 295,000, and a metropolitan area population of 364,000. Between the Omaha and Lincoln areas, 2/3 of the state population lives within those two. All of Nebraska's other communities are smaller than 60,000, with some notable ones including Grand Island, North Platte, and Scotts Bluff, the largest community in the Panhandle of Nebraska with a little over 14,000 residents. Nebraska has a car-oriented transportation network. One major interstate that dissects the state is I-80, a long east-west interstate going from Teaneck, New Jersey to San Francisco, California. I-76, a 187-mile interstate, runs mostly through Colorado, but ends at I-80 in Nebraska. Also, multiple auxiliary interstates, including I-129, I-180, I-480, and I-680, connect Omaha and Lincoln respectively to I-80 and I-29, which is in Iowa. The first transcontinental railroad, constructed between 1863 and 1869, traversed Nebraska, and nowadays I-80 follows a similar route. The economies of Kansas and Nebraska were historically agrarian, but both states have become more diversified. Kansas has a state GDP of $227.4 billion and a per capita income of $67,000 a year. The state's economy is deeply rooted in agriculture, earning the state its nickname, the Wheat State. As one of the nation's top producers of wheat, corn, and cattle, Kansas plays a vital role in feeding both the U.S. and global markets. Beyond agriculture, the state's economy is bolstered by manufacturing, particularly in the aviation industry, with Wichita being known as the air capital of the world. Additionally, Kansas is a leader in renewable energy, especially wind power, taking advantage of its wide open plains. With the blend of traditional and modern industries, Kansas's economy showcases resilience and adaptability in the heart of the Midwest. Kansas is home to several major companies, including Koch Industries, a multinational corporation involved in industries such as manufacturing, energy, chemicals, and finance, Garmin, a leader in navigation and fitness solutions, Spirit Aerosystems, one of the world's largest manufacturers of aircraft components and supply parts for companies like Boeing and Airbus, and Payless Shoe Source, a well-known footwear retailer. Nebraska has a state GDP of $179.2 billion and a per capita income of $71,000 a year. Nebraska's economy is heavily influenced by agriculture, with the state being a top producer of corn, soybeans, and cattle. Known as part of the Corn Belt, Nebraska's rich farmlands make it a key player in feeding the nation and the world. The state also has a strong manufacturing sector, with industries ranging from food processing to machinery production. In recent years, Nebraska has become a hub for data centers and technology, thanks to its central location and reliable infrastructure. Additionally, the state is investing in renewable energy, particularly wind power, adding to its economic diversification. Companies headquartered in Nebraska include Berkshire Hathaway, a multinational conglomerate holding company with interest in a wide range of industries, including insurance, utilities, railroads, and manufacturing, and led by renowned investor Warren Buffett, TD Ameritrade, a prominent online brokerage firm, Mutual of Omaha, a major insurance and financial services company, and Union Pacific, one of the largest railroad networks in the U.S., contributing to the nation's freight transportation. Geopolitically, Kansas and Nebraska have evolved over the last century. Kansas became a state in 1861, and its first presidential election was in 1864, when the state gave its electoral votes to win the incumbent Republican Abraham Lincoln. This set a trend of the state voting for Republican candidates until the 1892 election, when the state gave its electoral votes to third-party populist candidate Eugene Weaver. At the time, Kansas had a large population of farmers who supported the populist platform, which reinforced the concerns of farmers struggling with falling crop prices, high railroad rates, and debt. In 1896, Kansas gave its electoral votes to losing candidate Democrat William Jennings Bryan, but voted Republican again in 1900. From that time through the middle part of the 20th century, Kansas went back and forth between voting for Republican and Democratic candidates. But since 1968, Kansas has given its electoral votes to all Republican candidates and is seen federally as a safe red state. Kansas has 2 Republican U.S. Senators, Jerry Moran and Roger Marshall, and in the House of Representatives, 3 Republicans and 1 Democrat. On the state level, Kansas does currently have a Democrat governor, Laura Kelly, who was elected in 2018 and narrowly re-elected in 2022. Nebraska became a state in 1867, and its very first election was in 1868 when it gave its electoral votes to winning Republican candidate Ulysses S. Grant. Through the mid-1890s, the state voted for Republican candidates, but this streak ended in 1896 when it gave its electoral votes to losing Democratic candidate William Jennings Bryan. During the first part of the 20th century, Nebraska went back and forth between Republicans and Democrats, and after the 1968 election, like Kansas, started to become a safe red state. However, in 1992, Nebraska started using the congressional district method, which allowed for split electoral votes instead of the winner-takes-all system most states have. The only other state that has a congressional district method is Maine. Nebraska's votes have only been split twice in the last 32 years. Once in 2008, when one electoral vote went to Democrat Barack Obama, and again in 2020, when one electoral vote went to Democrat Joe Biden. Even though electoral votes can be split, Nebraska is still regarded as being a Republican stronghold in federal elections. In the U.S. Senate, Nebraska has 2 Republican senators, Deb Fischer and Pete Ricketts, and in the House of Representatives, 3 Republicans. On the state level, Nebraska has a Republican governor, Jim Pillen, who was elected in 2022. Kansas and Nebraska will continue to be important American states. Their centralized location makes both states important hubs for transcontinental automotive and locomotive transportation. Also, their farmlands contribute significantly to feeding America by growing important staple crops such as wheat and corn. That concludes today's State Comparison Series episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you'd like to leave your feedback, please do so in the comment section below. And remember, if you like geography, both physical and human geography, be sure to subscribe to my channel, Our World, Our Planet, Our Home. Until next time!